Welcome to today's episode of the Sharon Cliff podcast. And today's episode is tips for when the shit hits the fan. Now, over the last 18 months, 2 years, there's been a lot of instances where the shit hits the fan. And to be honest, probably in our lifetime, it's probably a weekly occurrence when the shit hits the fan. So what do you do? What's my tips for when the shit hits the fan? The first thing is lean into it because it's happened. There's nothing you can do about it. Once the shit has already hit the fan, there's nothing you can do. What the best thing to do is to acknowledge it. Okay, the shit's hit the fan. Now it depends on how fast the fan is spinning and how much shit has hit the fan as to what the outcome is. So my first tip is to lean in and go, okay, this has happened. I can't change it. I just need to deal with it. So in that case, what can you control? Obviously, it's happened to you. So what can you control? So if you think about the situation that's happened where you are, is there things that you can do to stop this happening again? If there is, write it down. Think about all the things that you can do to make sure that this doesn't happen again and take the action so that you can put things in place so this doesn't happen again. The other thing when you're leaning in is, okay, what can't you control? If there's things that you can't control, it's okay, well, there's nothing you can do about that. So lean into that and look at, okay, I can't control that, but what things could I put in place that if this happens again, how can I cope better? How can I make the impacts less? And if it was to happen again, okay, well, these are the things, boom, boom, boom. These are the things that I need to put in place as soon as it does happen because I can't control it because it's going to happen. Or if it's going to be a huge impact, well, okay, well, what can I do to cope? What can I do to shorten the time where it's going to be of impact? So those are the things about leaning into it. There's no point in sitting there beating yourself up and getting upset and getting angry and getting cranky and getting sad and dwelling on it. So lean in and look at what you can control and what you can't control, as I said, and take the action and put the plans in place for the next time it happens. The next part, my next tip is around your reaction. So as I just said, look at what you can control and what you can't control. So write down a plan of action steps that you can take to stop it from happening again, to be able to lessen the impact next time, or, if you can control it, then what things can you do so it doesn't happen again? So have a look at your reaction. So as I said, don't sit there getting mad, getting angry, getting upset and dwelling on it and going into a really negative state. What you need to do is, okay, this has happened. I'm ready to take action. What can I do? And take that action, because how you react is a domino effect for what happens from this point forward. So sitting there and getting angry isn't going to change the fact the shit has already hit the fan. What you can do is how you react as to how quickly you can get yourself out of that situation. Also, how you react is going to impact others. So if the shit hitting your fan is going to impact you, what can you do with how you react and what action you take? But also, if that shit hitting the fan is going to impact someone else, your reaction is going to flow onto them. So if you start to get really angry and that is also going to impact someone else, it's also probably going to make them angry. So just looking at how you react and how your reaction is going to impact someone else is a really big tip. So look at how you react to the situation and making sure that, if you're going to be reactive, well, be reactive in a more positive way. So, taking action to make sure it doesn't happen again, or that you've got practices in place, or that you can, react to get yourself out of that situation quickly rather than reacting in a negative way. The other thing is looking at your feelings. So have a look at how you're feeling now. So when this shit has hit the fan, and the shit hitting the fan will happen in different ways. So obviously there'll be different feelings. So there's times where the shit hits the fan in your business and you'll react and feel differently in a business environment. There'll be times where the shit will hit the fan in your personal life, and how you feel and how you react will be different, because in your family it'll be more emotional, whereas in your business it's emotional, but it's probably more of a business emotion rather than a really deep personal feeling. So there's different times in your life where the shit will hit the fan in different areas of your life. So whether it be, something happening in your business where a product doesn't go to plan, or a supplier doesn't deliver, or something happens with a staff member, or something happens with a customer, that's the shit hitting the fan there. With your personal life, it could be something happens with your kids, or something happens with your partner, or something happens with your family or friends. It could be someone not being reliable, or someone changing plans, or, if something happened with your house, etc. And the thing is, sometimes the shit will hit the fan in your business and your personal life. And that's why these tips are so important, to lean into it, to look at how you react, to look at how you feel. And if you go back to what I said just before about, if you start to feel really sad, or start to feel upset, or start to feel angry, it's okay to feel those emotions. But what we need to do is turn the situation around. So if we're starting to feel angry, go, okay, I feel angry. All right, why do I feel angry? How can I move past that? Because if you stay in that point of anger for a long time, it's not going to change anything, and it's not going to move you out of that state. The same as if you feel really sad. If you stay in that sad state, it's not going to change the situation. The situations happen. What you need to do is bring yourself out of that so that you can move forward. And when you're thinking about these feelings, like, if you're sad or if you're angry, when that shit hits the fan, and when I said earlier about going in and having a look at, what you can control and what you can't control, and what actions you can put in place so that it either stops this shit from hitting the fan again, or you can put things in place when you don't have control. You can put things in place to actually lessen the impact, or lessen the time of the impact. So, shorten the impact. So if the shit hitting the fan this time is going to upset things for 3 days, maybe you can put things in place so that when this same shit hits the fan next time, it only impacts you for the day. So that's the thing when I'm talking about feeling. So noting how you're feeling now, so that when the shit hits the fan, you know that you're going to feel like that, and you can put mechanisms in place to cope. Also that, if you feel really mad, that use that, angry energy to take the action, to put things in place so it doesn't happen again, or so that you can cope better or shorten that time of impact for next time. That's my next tip. The next thing is the lessons in this. Everything that happens to us, good, bad, or indifferent, is all about lessons in life. And again, it's, talking about the feelings and the reaction and the action that you're taking. The lesson's the same. There's no failure. It's all about the lesson. And if you learn something from that thing that's happened, there's a lesson in everything that happens. And, at the time you might think, oh, this is shit. But there's a reason why that's happened. There's a reason why you've had to experience. There's a reason why you've had to move through that. There's some kind of growth in there. So always look for the lesson, and at the time you might not see it because you're deep in it. You're deep in the anger, or you're deep in the fear, or you're deep in the sadness. You're deep in that emotion and the feeling. But you need to step back at some point and look at the lesson, whether it's whilst you're in it or it's after it's happened and you've come out of it. Always look for the lesson. The last tip for when the shit hits the fan is that, I speak about, leaning in and how you react and your actions and your feeling and the lessons. And when you're in that moment, it's really hard to be able to shift your mindset so that you can look at how you can pull yourself out of it. Because the quicker that you pull yourself out of that situation of sadness, or, grief, or of being angry, the sooner you can pull yourself out of that situation and go, okay, this has happened. I feel like this is how I need to react. This is the lesson, whatever. The sooner you can pull yourself out of that and shift your mindset and start to take the action, the sooner things will be better for you. If you really dwell on it and you stay stuck in that mindset and not take any action, it's going to prolong the impact. It's going to make it harder. It's going to make you feel worse. It's going to impact everyone around you. And when something happens in one area of your life, it impacts every part of your life, no matter how you try to separate that. So if something happens in your personal life, it's going to affect your business life. If something happens in your business life, it's going to affect your personal life. So the sooner you can flip your mindset and pull yourself up out of that situation and go, okay, this has happened. I've got to deal with it. Let's move on and let's take the action. that is my tips on what to do when the shit hits the fan. Now, how did this all come about? I wanted to give you all the tips before I gave you the story. Most of the time, people give you the story, then give you the tips. So how this come about is that two of my older adult children were in a situation where they were both at the same place at the same time. They both made the wrong decision, and the shit hit the fan, particularly for one of them. And they have had to live with the consequences now. It's nothing, it's not really bad or anything like that. It is a serious thing, but it's not, end of the world sort of stuff. And they came back home and they sort of said what had happened. And it's like, okay, the shit's hit the fan. Okay, there's no point in sitting there getting upset about it. There's no point in being angry. There's no point in saying, what if, I didn't do that, or, because one of the actions from one of them then impacted the other one. But in that case, I said, you're both adults. You both had the choice to make your own decisions. And even though you reacted to that one and the decision that this one made, so my daughter, acted, and then my son could have made, two different choices. And unfortunately, he made the choice to do the action that led him to the shit hitting the fan. And I'm like, well, she felt bad because of the action he took. And it's like, yeah, well, he's old enough. He had a choice to take one of two actions, and he took the action where the shit hit the fan and the consequences weren't great for him. And it's like, so what you need to do is, what I said to them is, there's no point in going, what if, and what if you did this, and what if he didn't take that action, he took the other action. And, you're both responsible for your own actions. And the shit hit the fan. And whilst he was directly impacted, she wasn't. She was impacted secondary because she was involved in the action taken of both, but also it affected her because he, the shit hit the fan with him, and she sort of felt responsible for part of it because of her actions as well. So they were both sitting there feeling angry, feeling crap. And I said, okay, so both of you, you can't control it. It's happened now. You can't take it back. You both took the action. You both got to take responsibility. Next time you know what action to take, and it wasn't the action that you took this time. Lean into how you're feeling now is what I said to them. You both feel crap right now. So remember that. So next time you're in that position where you need to make a choice and take action, you now know which action to take because you know how crap you're feeling now. And you're going to remember that every time you get to that decision. The next thing is, what's the lesson here? You can't change anything that's happened. What's the lesson here? You know how to act and how to make choices, how to make better choices in future when you're faced with this same decision. So that was the lesson for them. And the thing is with me, it was like, okay, you need to pull yourself out of this. Yes, okay, you're going to be angry with yourself. You're going to be, upset with yourself. But there's no point in staying in this situation. You need to pull yourself out of it. We need to deal with it. And whatever happens out of the consequences, you just got to deal with it. But you just know that you never want to be in this position again. So that was how sort of the situation coming about, the shit hitting the fan, was because this was an experience that happened with my kids, but you can also relate it to business, because so many times in business, the shit hits the fan, and we need to be able to lean into it, to, react the best way possible, to be able to recognize our feelings and move on, but also to be able to pull the lesson out of that and also shift our mindset so we can pull ourselves out of that situation. So that is my take on when the shit hits the fan, my tips, and how the story came about this podcast. If the shit has hit the fan for you, let me know, and I'd love to hear, what you did to get yourself out of it, and what steps you put in place that doesn't happen again. And if you have a situation at the moment where the shit has hit the fan for you and you can't work through it, you can't move through it, or you can't find the lesson, reach out to me, on social media, and I would love to offer you a free coaching session, not a sales call, a free coaching session to help you move through it, and let's see what lessons we can learn from that. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Shane Cliff podcast. Remember, you can find it also on YouTube, where you can actually watch this video live. Until next time, see you then.